Lori here. I am so glad that you stopped back by my channel today. I've got a new video for Tailored Expressions and it's all about these blender brushes right here. If you don't have these blender brushes, you're probably waiting patiently, but hopefully that you'll get to see them soon. If you already have them, you know that they are amazing brushes. They are color coded, obviously. You can use one color for each brush, and the bristles are white, and that helps out so much. You can see what color you're using. Today we're going to be making a card using one of Taylor's stencils and several other things. So this is what we've got going. First off, pixie spray for the stencil. If you don't have this, it's amazing stuff, and I'll show you how I use that here in a second. I've got Tailored Expressions Guava, Lemon Meringue, and Lime Zest for the colors that I'm going to be using today. Stamps and dies, I've got the Kindness die and the Kindness script backer. This one is the shadow for this main sentiment die. We're going to be using Plant Kindness, a couple of sentiments from this, and then also we're going to be using this Blooming Beautiful stencil. I love this stencil, so cute. Basic supplies as far as paper. I have a larger piece of cardstock we're going to stencil on this, a card base, an extra piece of cardstock for the sentiment. I have a little strip of glitter, cardstock, fun foam, and vellum. To get started, I'm going to add a light coat of pixie spray on the back of this stencil. When you place your stencil on the cardstock, this just adds a tackiness to the back, and that holds your stencil in place. So when you're blending, it won't move, and it results in a really crisp blended image. We're going to color the roses pink, the leaves green obviously, and in the centers we're going to add the yellow. To do the finer detail work, I have a Ranger detailed ink blender, and I'm going to go ahead and add the yellow into those spaces. I always blot with the blenders and anything else I'm blending with, and then off to the side, just blend off a little of that ink so you don't get a smudge on your card front. I'm just going to add a really light coat of yellow in between in all the negative spaces. Next, I'm going to go in with the Lime Zest and add some green to the leaves. I just use the tip of the brush for this, and that way you can get color in a smaller space just using the tip. Again, blending off to the side to get some of that ink off so it doesn't leave a smudge. And then lightly going in with the green and blending in a really light circle. It's best to go in with a light hand first, and then you can add color with the blending brushes as you need. Next, I'm going to go in and do the same thing with the Guava ink. I'm going to use the red blender for this, and I'm going to scoot this over so I don't get into my blending over there. And then this will just be a light hand again with the tip of the brush blending in that color. A lot of times I'll use this little puddle of ink over here to pick up color from, and that way I'm not getting big globs of red ink onto the card front. Again, light-handed, and you can always go back in and add more if you'd like more color. If you need to, you can always go back in with your detail brush and add color where you might have left off, or just to add in a little bit more detail. So once you're all done blending, you can just peel away your stencil and you're left with a really pretty multicolored stencil. I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to where I have just enough for a card front, and I'll be right back. So now we'll go ahead and build the card. I'm going to score my card base at 5.5, and then you can see I cut this down to where we have just an inch of room at the bottom for the sentiment. With the Kindness die, I'm going to cut one out of white cardstock. I'm going to cut the shadow out of vellum, and then I'll do another Kindness out of fun foam. First, I'm going to add some liquid glue to the back of the Kindness die, and I'll add this to the vellum shadow. This is Hero Arts Precision Glue. You could also use spray adhesive, which is what I use most of the time. It's a lot quicker, and you can just add your die cuts, stack them up, or add them to the vellum, either way. This gives you a little wiggle room as far as sliding it around. So I'm just adding that, and then I can kind of slide that up. The reason I cut this out of fun foam, I'm going to add this to the back of the vellum, and that gives the sentiment a little bit of dimension, but you won't be able to see it through the vellum. So I'm going to flip the vellum sentiment over. I'm adding glue just behind the cardstock, and then we'll go ahead and add in the Fun Foam Dimensional. This is just like a big homemade pop dot, but way easier. So when you turn this over, you won't be able to see the Fun Foam through the vellum. I'm going to add ATG to the back of this stenciled piece and then add a layer of Fun Foam before I add it to the card. We're going to place this right up here at the top of the card. And then the next thing is I'm going to go in with this glittered paper and add this just right along the bottom. I cut this a little bit longer to go over the sides, and that way you can go in with detail scissors and cut that off, and then you've got the perfect length. Next, I'm going to go in and stamp the sentiment along the bottom of the card base. To use red rubber stamps with your MISTI, all you need to do is take out the foam piece and any of the paper. When you add the stamp to your MISTI, it will stamp perfectly on your card base. Today we're going to use the Brighten the World sentiment, and we're going to add that down here to the card front. I've added the sentiment to the MISTI and also a scratch piece of paper. I'm going to ink this up with black ink and stamp this on the sample. As you can see, they're really easy to line up, and that ended up being really straight on the card. So now I'm adding in my card, and I'll go ahead and stamp the sentiment. Last thing I'm going to do is add the kindness sentiment, and again we'll add a few more dots of glue, this time onto the Fun Foam. I'm going to pick that up and add that on and press that down, just leaving a little of that glitter showing through the bottom. So there you have my finished card. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video, and I hope that you love these brushes as much as I do. I hope for those of you who don't have them yet that you'll be getting them very soon. Thanks so much for watching today, and I hope to see you again soon.